Everyone talks about the most chaotic FNAF game. Some people say it's FNAF 2, others say Sister Location changed everything, but I'm going to argue something different. The original Five Nights at Freddy's is still the best game in the entire series, and not just because it started everything. FNAF 1 did something that almost no horror game has been able to recreate since. It made sitting in a chair absolutely terrifying. So today, we're breaking down why the first game still stands above every other entry in this series. When people remember FNAF 1, they remember the tension. Not the chaos, not the mechanics, the tension. You're alone in a tiny security office. 2 doors, limited power, and 4 animatronics slowly hunting you down. There's no running, no hiding, no fighting back. Your only tools are lights, doors, and cameras. And somehow, that simplicity creates one of the most stressful horror experiences ever made. One of the biggest reasons FNAF 1 works so well is that the mechanics are perfectly simple. You only have 3 things to manage: the cameras, the doors, and your power. That's it. But every decision matters. Check the cameras too often, you waste power. Close the door too early, you waste power. Wait too long, you're dead. Every mechanic feeds into one central idea: resource management under pressure. And because the systems are simple, the player immediately understands the rules, which means the fear comes from anticipation, not confusion. Another reason FNAF 1 works so well is the iconic animatronics. Every character feels completely different. Bonnie moves quietly and unpredictably, Chica slowly creeps closer, Foxy forces you to constantly check Pirate Cove, and Freddy's terrifying because you rarely see him move. Instead, he just appears closer and closer in the darkness. The characters aren't just enemies, they're psychological pressure systems. Each one forces you to play differently. Okay, just for a second, let's turn away from the mechanics and let's look at the atmosphere. What really sets FNAF 1 apart is the atmosphere. The game feels lonely. The building is quiet. You're hearing distant footsteps, kitchen noises, static from cameras, and sometimes nothing at all. The silence is what makes the jump scares work, because your brain starts filling in the fear before anything even happens. Most horror games relied on loud moments. FNAF 1 relies on dread. Okay, let's talk about the mystery. FNAF 1 also introduced something that would define the entire franchise: the mystery. But the way it tells the story is genius. There are no long cutscenes, no exposition dumps. Instead, the game hides tiny clues: newspaper articles, rare hallucinations, strange camera images, and of course, Golden Freddy. Players had to piece together the story themselves, which turned the entire internet into a detective team. Okay, time for my favorite part: the lore. When you really look at the lore of FNAF 1, it's actually incredibly dark. Hidden in the newspapers you can occasionally find in the office are articles about 5 missing children, kids who disappeared inside Freddy Fazbear's pizza, and the suspect, a man wearing a mascot costume. Fans later connected this to the character known as William Afton, or the Purple Guy. The theory is that these children were murdered inside the restaurant, and their souls ended up possessing the animatronics. That's why they attack the night guard. They don't see you as a person, they see you as someone wearing a security uniform, which they mistake for the killer. And suddenly, the animatronics aren't just monsters, they're victims. Even Golden Freddy, the strangest character in the game, became a huge mystery. Sometimes he appears as a hallucination, sometimes he crashes your game. And to this day, he's still one of the most mysterious characters in the entire franchise. And the craziest part, almost none of this is explained directly in the game. Players had to discover every piece of the story themselves, which turned FNAF from a simple horror game into one of the biggest internet mystery franchises ever created. Now, yes, some people will say the other games are better. FNAF 2 has more mechanics and characters. FNAF 3 introduced the story of Springtrap. Sister Location added voice acting and cinematic storytelling. And those are all great additions, but sometimes more features actually weaken the horror. Because when a game throws too many systems at the player, the fear turns into busy work. FNAF 1 never had that problem. Everything served the tension. Even today, over a decade later, FNAF 1 still works. New players still get scared, the gameplay still feels tight, and the atmosphere still feels oppressive. That's the sign of a great horror game. It doesn't rely on trends, it relies on fundamentals. And FNAF 1 absolutely nailed them. So while the series has gotten bigger, more complicated, and way more chaotic, the original Five Nights at Freddy's might still be the best one ever made. But I want to know what you think. Is FNAF 1 the best game in the series, or does another game take the crown? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, because I've got a lot more FNAF content coming soon. And trust me, some of those takes are going to be even more controversial. Now, I'll see y'all in the next video. Y'all have a good night, good morning, wherever you're at, and bye-bye.